The 5 faces of oppression: naming injustice, unveiling power. Oppression is structural, embedded in unquestioned norms, habits, and symbols. Iris Marion Young, Justice and the Politics of Difference. 1. Nature of the framework. Iris Marion Young's theory identifies 5 interconnected forms, or faces, of oppression. 1. Exploitation. 2. Marginalization. 3. Powerlessness. 4. Cultural imperialism. 5. Violence. These categories reveal that oppression is not merely about overt acts of discrimination or inequality, but is embedded in structural, cultural, and institutional systems. Each face represents a mechanism through which domination is enacted and sustained. Young's model is especially relevant in transformative education, which seeks to unmask, challenge, and undo these embedded injustices, and in social justice research, which interrogates the systems that shape lives, access, and agency. 1. Exploitation. Nature. Exploitation refers to the systematic transfer of the results of labor from one social group to benefit another. It is central to capitalism, colonialism, and patriarchy, where wealth and social surplus are extracted from the labor of the oppressed. Processes. Wage gaps and economic disparities between racial, gender, or class groups. Academic labor divisions, where women and people of color do more teaching or service work, but receive fewer rewards. Cultural exploitation, where dominant groups appropriate and profit from the knowledge, creativity, or traditions of others. Consequences: economic inequality, burnout and devaluation, erosion of dignity and self-worth. Relevance in transformative education, calls for decolonizing curricula, ethical collaboration, and critical inquiry into how institutions exploit intellectual and emotional labor. Encourages equity in workload, authorship, and recognition for minoritized academics and students. 2. Marginalization. Nature. Marginalization occurs when entire groups of people are excluded from meaningful participation in social, political, and economic life. Processes: exclusion of disabled, elderly, indigenous, LGBTQIA+, or rural populations from higher education or employment. Institutional barriers, language requirements, inaccessible infrastructure, admissions policies that push people to the periphery. Consequences: dependency on public welfare, loss of autonomy, purpose, and visibility. Cultural silencing and psychological trauma. Relevance in transformative education. Requires affirmative action, inclusive pedagogy, and policies that bring the margins to the center. Drives research on intersectionality, inclusive design, and access justice. 3. Powerlessness. Nature. Powerlessness reflects the lack of authority, autonomy, and decision-making capacity in one's work or daily life. It is characterized by social division between those who make decisions and those who must follow them. Processes: hierarchies in academia, where students, adjuncts, or staff are voiceless. Disempowering classroom environments that discourage dissent, critical inquiry, or agency. Tokenism without real influence. Consequences: self-censorship, alienation, and resignation. Suppressed leadership potential. Reproduction of dependency and docility. Relevance in transformative education. Demands participatory governance, co-created knowledge, and student voice in learning environments. Calls for transformative leadership that shares power and nurtures agency. In research, this shifts the focus from doing research onto doing research with. 4. Cultural imperialism. Nature. Cultural imperialism is the universalization of the dominant group's culture and experience, rendering it the norm, while others are marked as inferior, exotic, or invisible. Processes: Eurocentrism in curricula and epistemology, English language hegemony in publishing, stereotyping and erasure of indigenous, African, feminist, queer, or working-class knowledge. Consequences: loss of cultural pride and epistemic confidence, identity fragmentation and shame, intellectual dependency and mimicry, relevance in transformative education, calls for epistemic justice and curricular transformation that honors multiple ways of knowing, supports the decolonization of education, including language justice, indigenous pedagogy, and African-centered philosophies. In research, prompts methodologies rooted in local realities and counter-hegemonic knowledge systems. 5. Violence. Nature. Violence in this context includes systemic, symbolic, and interpersonal acts or threats of harm targeted at individuals because of their group identity. It also includes the normalization of fear. Processes: gender-based violence in schools and campuses, racial profiling and microaggressions, silencing and targeting of activists or radical scholars. Consequences: physical and psychological harm, withdrawal from participation in public life or academia, culture of fear, silence, and conformity. Relevance in transformative education, drives the creation of safe, just, and trauma-informed learning spaces, promotes anti-violence education, peace-building, and restorative practices, encourages research that resists complicity in harm, and centers survivor voices. 6. Interconnectedness of the 5 faces. These forms of oppression are not isolated. They intersect and reinforce one another. For example, a Black woman academic may experience exploitation, cultural imperialism, powerlessness, marginalization, and violence. Understanding oppression in this multidimensional way enables intersectional interventions that address not just individual biases, but systemic structures of domination. 7. Application in transformative education and research. Curriculum reform. Curricula must be restructured to interrogate the 5 faces of oppression, amplify counter-narratives and excluded knowledges, prepare learners to recognize and resist systemic injustice. Pedagogy and praxis. Educators must create participatory, critically reflective classrooms, name and challenge institutional complicity, equip students with analytical tools for transformation, research and scholarship. Social justice research must map oppression in its structural, cultural, and personal forms, disrupt epistemic violence through ethical, inclusive methodologies, pursue change-oriented knowledge not just to understand the world, but to change it. 8. Concluding reflection. A lens for liberation. The 5 faces of oppression offer a comprehensive framework for analyzing injustice and guiding action. In transformative education, this means moving from silence to voice, from domination to solidarity, and from fragmentation to healing. Until we can name what oppresses us, we cannot fight it. Happy learning!